Hello, BBN. There were reports that the Wildcats spent $22 million on their roster for this season. Wouldn't that be shocking, or even excessive compared to other rosters? What does BBN think of this? Let's see what's new. But first, subscribe to the channel. The news about the $22 million investment in the Kentucky Wildcats roster for the 2025-26 season has generated waves of discussion that extend far beyond the court. The amount, which likely positions the Wildcats as the most expensive college team in American basketball, raises interesting questions about the financial dynamics of the sport and the public perception of such decisions. However, rather than apologize, BBN has solid reasons to look back with pride on this milestone, a reflection of the strength and tradition of a program that has always known how to play to win. Comparing Kentucky basketball to other professional leagues, such as a Major League Baseball (MLB), helps put things in perspective. Cincinnati Reds fans, for example, have not hesitated to criticize the disparity between their $115 million payroll and the Los Angeles Dodgers' staggering $321 million. Yet, when it comes to teams like the Dodgers, no one questions their right to utilize their available resources within the established rules. If results are forthcoming, the narrative changes. What could be seen as excess is quickly reinterpreted as strategic vision and a commitment to excellence. This is exactly what is happening with Kentucky right now. Coach Mark Pope is operating under the same premises, within the norms imposed by the NCAA and with a competitive mindset that defines the program's DNA. And let's face it, today's landscape is the result of years of construction. Kentucky basketball has never been just a college team. It is an institution that breathes basketball in every detail. With the end of the John Calipari era marked by some setbacks, there was a natural expectation of renewal, and Mark Pope, in his second year at the helm, seems to have gotten the message. He's not only embraced the high expectations that come with the position, but he's also demonstrated his willingness to raise them even higher. A roster valued at $22 million is, above all, a clear sign that the program is betting big, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, some view the investment with a certain degree of skepticism. Some fan bases of other college teams might argue that such a financial volume creates an unfair imbalance. But is that really true? Kentucky isn't breaking any rules by assembling a roster as talented as it is expensive. In fact, the program is doing exactly what it should, maximizing its chances of success within established guidelines. And if the goal is to win championships, why not invest heavily? After all, we're talking about a team that has already won 8 NCAA titles, a legacy built precisely by knowing how to maximize its resources. It's impossible to ignore the weight of expectations now weighing on Mark Pope's shoulders. Such an expensive roster comes with commensurate pressure, and any slip-up could generate harsh criticism. However, Pope doesn't seem intimidated. On the contrary, he seems to thrive in this kind of environment. From the beginning of his tenure, it's been clear that he's not someone who shrinks from challenges. His confident demeanor and his ability to attract exceptional talent are proof that he's ready to lead this team to new heights. For him, the investment isn't a burden, but an opportunity to cement his mark on the rich history of Kentucky basketball. Another important point to consider is the emotional impact this new phase could have on the fans. After a period of transition post-Calipari, Big Blue Nation yearns for a return to the top. The robust investment in the roster sends a clear message that the program is committed to restoring joy to its passionate fans. It's not just about numbers or astronomical figures. It's about recapturing the essence of what makes Kentucky special. When the Wildcats take the court, they carry with them the hopes and dreams of millions of fans. Spending $22 million to build a team capable of honoring this heritage isn't a luxury. It's an obligation. Furthermore, it's worth remembering that college basketball in the United States is constantly evolving. With the growth of the NIL, Athletes now have more bargaining power than ever before. In this context, programs like Kentucky must adapt quickly to remain competitive. Spending large sums on a roster isn't just a strategic choice. It's a necessity to attract the best talent available. This news came just before the Purdue game. Kentucky fans breathed a sigh of relief this week. After days of apprehension and uncertainty, point guard Jalen Lowe is back in light practice and in great shape, according to Coach Mark Pope. The incident that temporarily sidelined him, a shoulder injury during the traditional blue-white game, had fans and coaching staff worried, but a final diagnosis brought collective relief in Lexington. Nothing serious, and no structural damage detected on the MRI. Lowe, a transfer from Pittsburgh and one of the most promising players on the new roster, seemed destined to be a central figure in Pope's rotation. His fall during the intra-squad was one of those moments that paralyzes a gym. The player on the floor, clutching his shoulder, the coach rushing to him, and the crowd's silence in seconds. At that moment, preseason expectations seemed threatened. But just a week later, the scenario changed drastically, and for the better. Mark Pope was emphatic in his final press conference during the program's opening luncheon in Louisville. Jalen is doing very well. He's improved a lot in the last 48 hours. He's very, very positive, the coach stated, with a mix of enthusiasm and caution. Caution, in fact, is the tone adopted by the entire coaching staff. Even with the players' impressive progress, Pope doesn't intend to rush anything. We're going to proceed cautiously, but he's a high-level competitor. He's doing very well, and he'll be in great shape, he added. The coach knows that in college basketball, there's a fine line between confidence and rashness. The team faces number 1 Purdue this Friday, a tough challenge even before the season officially starts. But Pope doesn't want a friendly to jeopardize what could be a year consolidation for Lowe and the program itself. I'm going to have to be super brave to put him on the court anytime soon, the coach joked, acknowledging collective anxiety surrounding seeing him play, but reaffirming his responsibility to preserve the athlete's health. The injury, which initially appeared to be a complete dislocation, turned out to be much less worrisome. The MRI showed that Lowe's shoulder is intact, and the estimated recovery time is only 1 to 3 weeks. Excellent news considering the severity of the injury. Sources close to the player confirmed to Kentucky sports radio that the point guard will be fine and should be ready soon. Before the injury, Lowe was showing exactly why Mark Pope brought him to Lexington. In the blue-white game, he scored a team-high 9 points in 12 minutes, making 3 of 6 shots and 1 three-pointer, along with 2 rebounds and an assist. In a revamped squad, he stood out for his calm command of the offense and his ability to push the pace when necessary, rare traits in a point guard his age. The episode served as a reminder that Pope's team-building process is still ongoing, but also that there is a solid foundation from which the coach can build. Pope himself, in his first year at Kentucky, has led the program with a combination of energy and pragmatism that is beginning to reconnect Big Blue Nation with his proud history. Seeing how he handled the Lowe situation, without panic, with transparency and prudence, reinforces a feeling that the Wildcats coaching staff is in good hands. The 2025-26 season is still just beginning, but the mood in Lexington is optimistic. Jalen Lowe is expected back soon, and his return will bring not only a technical boost, but also a symbolic one. They have a team that has learned to react quickly to adversity, guided by a coach who understands the value of patience and preparation. The current football season can be described as an emotional roller coaster. Between painful setbacks and glimmers of hope, Stoops is trying to shape a different narrative. They have a team that, even in the face of adversity, is showing clear signs of improvement. The 16-13 overtime loss to Texas was a prime example of this duality. On the one hand, the final result is difficult to digest, especially for a fan base eager for consistent victories against elite opponents. On the other, however, Kentucky's performance on the field offers reason for optimism. And Mark Stoops, with his calm, methodical demeanor, didn't hesitate to emphasize these nuances. "We're getting better," he stated after the game, amid questions inevitably centered on the scoreboard. This seemingly simple statement carries much more weight when considered in context. The defense, which had been the target of harsh criticism in recent weeks, responded with performance worthy of applause. Limiting the powerful Texas offense to just 179 total yards is a remarkable feat, regardless of the final result. Stoops acknowledged the group's effort, saying, "They responded the way we expected." The coach wasn't exaggerating. The grit and determination demonstrated by the defensive unit were evident from the opening minutes of the game. The accurate tackles, constant pressure on the opposing quarterback, and the ability to close down gaps at crucial moments are signs that the hard work and practice is beginning to pay off. But perhaps the biggest highlight was a performance of young quarterback Cutter Boley. Even as a freshman, Boley showed impressive maturity, completing nearly 80% of his passes. This level of accuracy isn't something that happens by chance. It's the result of dedication and the competitive environment that Stoops has strived to instill in the program. The coach was emphatic in praising his players' progress. "Very impressed. The more he plays, the more comfortable he gets. He's improved. We've improved." This statement reflects not only Boley's individual growth, but also the long-term philosophy Stoops has adopted for the team's development. It's important to remember that Kentucky isn't a program with decades of winning traditions like Alabama or Ohio State. Building something solid in a state where basketball has always reigned supreme is a difficult task. Stoops knows this better than anyone. When he arrived at Kentucky in 2013, he inherited a team struggling to find its identity within the competitive SEC. Since then, he's managed to lead the Wildcats to important bowls and even some memorable seasons. However, consistency remains a challenge, and this fluctuation between highs and lows has tested the patience of fans and analysts alike. What makes Stoops' work intriguing is his ability to stay focused on the process, even when the immediate results don't follow. He doesn't deny the pain of defeat. It would be impossible to ignore the emotional impact of the setback as close as the one suffered against Texas. But at the same time, he quickly redirects the conversation to the future, reinforcing the importance of putting players in the best possible positions and continuing to invest in collective development. "How we approach things, that's what matters to me," he said. "It's a message that calls for understanding and trust, even in times of uncertainty." Of course, some question whether this approach is sufficient. After 13 years at the helm, Stoops can no longer be seen as a rookie coach promising future adjustments. He is the architect of this project, and it's up to him to ensure that the pillars built over those years can withstand the weight of rising expectations. Still, it's impossible to ignore the positive signs emerging, albeit slowly. The defense finding its rhythm, the rookie quarterback gaining valuable experience, the fighting spirit maintained until the last second. All of this suggests that Kentucky is building something that could soon blossom. For the more impatient fans, it might be frustrating to hear about improvements while victories keep slipping through their fingers. However, it's worth remembering that college football is a sport of cycles, and not everyone follows the same rhythm. The future is very uncertain in this game. Share your opinion